should. Yeah, so welcome to our third episode of the podcast. We're still in the awesome city of Brno. If you've seen our introduction in our first episode, I'm still with Frank. This is our last episode here in the city, and we're gonna shoot something else remotely or somewhere else. We love our podcasts being in different locations, so you can enjoy a different part of the city. We're not seeing outside though, but it's good to have a different environment. Today, I think we're going to tackle things related to how difficult a startup is. When it comes to managing the day to day. Everything seems chaotic. Nothing seems to be in order. But as product managers, we always have to have a strategy on keeping calm and moving on. And that's a popular meme that that you find everywhere, right? So, hi Frank,
Hey, Dustin.
how's it going, man?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Hello to everyone.
Yeah, cool. All right. So for today, I think what I'd love to do is to share you more about the common problem that I've had. So I've worked in B2C, B2B, different types of companies, and especially for B2B companies, and especially for a very young startup, uh, it's very, very important to have partners that you can trust or customers that you can work with, that can that you can test out some of your hypotheses, or solutions to your problems, because eventually a lot of these bigger clients that might have these solutions, will help you help direct your startup into the direction that you think it will go, successfully. And also, it's a very good story to tell. Let's say you have a big client that you close, um, and you can show investors later on if you want to raise funding that, hey, I have this X big box store, that's partnered with us. Like since they trusted us, probably you can trust us with your money so that we can bring this forward. So um, the use case that I have today is that I have an I worked with an amazing sales team when I was working with this B2B company. And they brought in this massive client that, we also had an opportunity perhaps to look at not only a strategic partnership, but a potential acquisition, And they wanted to seal the deal with a massive contract. However, the features that we had for our product, I think it was not enough to fulfill the use case for them to give the service to their customers. So they were asking for a huge roadmap ahead, because they knew that we were an engineering team, we're smaller, we move faster, and they wanted us to prioritize, let's say, three features, so that they can continue, they can sign the contract with us and they can continue with the partnership. However, I was kind of stuck as a product manager because there's so much people, asking for different features, or customers were asking for features. The CEO wanted features. They were not the only customers, so the customers also other customers also wanted new features. So my backlog was full of requests coming from different people. At the end of the day, how do I manage this? So I'll tell you my solution later on and how that goes. But I'd love to hear from you, Frank. How do you usually work on prioritizing effectively if there's so much different forces asking for different things?
Okay, Dustin, thank you very much for the question. I think this is a great question. And many times it is that everything seems urgent, right? And I think this is something that really uncovers the biggest problem of prioritization, that we prioritize the things only based on the urgency. But the problem is that this one parameter, urgency, it doesn't tell you what is important and what is not important. And I think we have in product management so many different prioritization frameworks. We have EYES and RISE and Moscow and value effort.
I think though I think that adds to the complexity of our work, right?
Yeah.
It's because you have a portfolio of different frameworks and that you can use, that when you're in front of the problem, you're like, crap, which one do I use?
Yeah. I mean, this was very challenging when I started product management. Which one of them is right for me? But the thing is that every one of them is better for different startup stage, startup type. Not only startup stage and type, but during your work in the same startup, in the same stage, you can use different prioritization frameworks for different prioritization work, right? So I think the key idea to understand is that you have to not only prioritize the urgent, but also you have to put the importance in the equation. So if you prioritize on urgency and importance, you have things that are urgent and important. Okay, those ones you should better do right now, right?
Okay.
But then you have things that are important but not urgent. And I think this is your golden nugget, because those things you can plan well before they become urgent. Because when something becomes urgent, it is the most expensive as it might be.
Yeah.
Think of it like this: you go for the dentist for just a regular check for cleaning.
Yeah.
It will cost you like, I don't know, like 50 bucks or something like this.
Okay.
But if you don't plan this check and you get really bad tooth pain,
Yeah.
it will cost 10 times more. Your health will be like permanently broken.
Yeah.
And I think this is the same principle everywhere in the business, in the product. So what is the importance in terms of product? You can think as importance as an impact, as amount of impact that the initiative will have on specific outcome.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So do we need to earn more users? So let's do the initiative that we will get us more users. Or do we need to earn more money? So let's do the initiative that will help us earn more money. And that brings me to another principle, and that is that you always should prioritize the features with the outcome, the final outcome in mind.
Yeah.
So not just being a feature factory and doing all those requests from the team, from the CEO, from the customers, but thinking about what final outcome will this feature help us achieve. That takes me to the first principle I always try to keep in mind, and that is, what is the biggest problem or opportunity our company or business have? And what is the biggest problem or opportunity our customers have? And how we can connect those to benefit both sides. And I think this is product management, because you will always be a business, so you need to focus on business outcomes, but you push those business outcomes by successfully delivering on your customers' outcomes.
Yeah.
And I think this is product management, basically.
No, I agree with that. And sorry to interject. I know you kind of had like a flow, and I didn't want to interrupt your flow. But I was thinking, man, then, when we were talking about urgency and importance, it feels like it's the same thing, like urgent and important, two different words, two different definitions. People might think about it in two different ways, but for me, they're the same thing. So it's difficult to think about urgency and importance. And then when you added in, what was that? Urgency, importance, and then you added in a third one as a variable.
Okay, this is a nice one, because if you can't understand it, as I said, maybe listeners wouldn't too. So no, the idea is that urgency is the time.
Okay.
So you need to do it in 2 weeks, or you need to do it right now. But it doesn't mean that it is valuable. It can seem urgent, like you need to really deal with this email right now.
But also importance is like, yes, it's important. It feels like a binary, right? Like, yes, it's important, or no, it's important.
No, think of as importance as value. Like importance. How important is it for us to make this work? What value will it bring us?
Yeah.
So one email can seem very urgent, but it is, I don't know, a promo email.
Yeah.
So you can really just open it and nothing happens. But another email from your CEO that you're going to work or you're going to get fired. So this is the importance of things.
But that's why I was interested with the outcome, because the outcome allows you to really imagine yourself after you're done with making this decision, right? And when you connected the outcome for both customer and business, I feel like the business outcome, meaning what you want for your business and also what you want for the customer, I feel like it's so much easier to imagine, how you can take steps back, to make the right decision. Because sometimes importance and all of these other variables are difficult to score in your head.
Yeah.
But if you think about the outcome that you want to achieve after doing all of these, I think that helps you, prioritize your decisions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the importance is, I define it as importance is the because urgency and importance is the like very well known framework from Eisenhower. So you make Eisenhower metrics. What is urgent and important you do right now.
Yeah.
What is important but not urgent you plan.
Oh, yes,
What
yes,
is
yes, yes.
urgent but not important you delegate.
Yeah.
And what is not urgent and not important you just throw it away.
Yeah.
So I took it from the Eisenhower and put it in the product development. And the importance, as I define it, is the amount of impact it will have on your outcome. So how much impact will it have on your outcome? So if your outcome is annual recurring revenue, so how much more recurring revenue will you make with this initiative, for example?
So usually, man, I know we're trying to do the scoring system and all of these. Do you usually physically get some piece of paper and you write down all of the feature requests and then
On the
do you
paper?
score? Yeah, and then do you put scores for everything? Like, what is your strategy? Because I'd love to. I know we can talk about this more, and it can be more theoretical. And everybody also has an opinion on, what variables you need to use in order to score for prioritization. But let's talk about. How do you prioritize? Do you use Notion? Do you use like a tool for it? Because I met a founder before that they were building product prioritization matrices in a platform, for product managers. I think that's cool, because you are able to see all of the frameworks and then you're able to use it in that product tool. But sometimes you just need pen and paper to really make a decision. But what's your, how do you usually make these decisions? Do you just throw a dice and like, oh crap, 6?
Yeah.
You know?
I like to work in systems and apps. So I used Product Board for gathering all the customers' feedback.
Not sponsored, by the way.
Not sponsored yet. Not sponsored yet.
But they're a Czech company, so
Yeah.
Frank, make it work.
Yeah, I'll try to.
Just kidding.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I used Product Board.
Okay.
Later, we switched to Jira Product Discovery. Okay, now we won't get the sponsoring.
Yeah, I'd love to actually hear more about that later on in a different episode on tools. I think that would be an interesting topic. And comparing all of these tools. But anyway.
Yeah.
And then what recently have you used then for prioritization for your agency?
No, I actually used that when I was in a product company. So when I was working on our own products.
Okay.
Because when we are working for the clients, it's like order-based most of the time work. So we just prioritize an Excel sheet or something like this.
Okay.
There is no need to create those systems. But those were very sophisticated systems that incorporated customer feedback. You can triangulate all the feedback with the features. Also, if you can prioritize based on the customer feedback, mostly, this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because as I said, the outcome of the business connected with the outcome of the customer, that's product management. So if you can define your outcomes well, what you need to do, and then find what from the customer's perspective can be done better in the product to make these outcomes work. So this is the way. But as you said, I sometimes use a paper.
Yeah.
The thing is that sometimes those systems get very messy.
Yep.
And I think it happens to everyone that you really set up a really good system, but there is a moment where you can't use it anymore.
Yeah.
And you have to make the decisions. So sometimes I just take the features, write them down in an Apple Note, and just look at them and write under them. Because you have all those comments on those features, and this is a good stuff, but all those comments, all those concepts and everything, but sometimes you get the step back.
Yeah.
So you just take a blank page and put it there. This is also how I sometimes prioritize my work, my to-dos, even though I use really sophisticated system for managing my to-dos. Yeah. But when it's the worst time, when I'm really extremely overwhelmed, that's the time I take the pen and paper.
Yeah. So let's go. It's good to go back to pen and paper.
Yeah. Because you feel less overwhelmed when you have something like this.
Because a lot of the tools can also be overwhelming, despite you having
a lot
like
of notifications and everything.
Whatever,
Yes.
That's why I'm always on Do Not Disturb. That's why I have friends who I don't respond too quickly. I use it for focus. So,
but
also,
you have one sheet that is physical.
Yeah.
So it feels that you have more control over it.
Yeah.
No notification. It stays the same. You have the focus. You just do when you complete a task and another one. So what do you use?
So for me, I always use Notion. But I always go back to the problem with Notion now and product managers of Notion, you got to listen to this, but you need an offline mode because I always feel that I travel a lot. So when I don't have the internet, I hack it out by, opening a page, and then when I don't have internet, it doesn't sync, and when I have internet, it syncs again. But I still always go back to pen and paper if I feel overwhelmed with everything digital. That's why I like cafes when they don't allow you to use your laptop because you're like, oh crap, but I can actually use pen and paper now. So I always keep a small notebook or journal or a cashier's notebook in my backpack or my bag, just so that if I don't need the internet or if I need a break, a digital break, I can just get my pen and paper. So yeah, and I like good paper.
Yeah.
The Japanese notebooks are pretty bomb.
So Dustin,
yeah.
maybe you can tell us more about how do you prioritize effectively when
So
everything
I can
seems
go back
urgent?
to the use case,
Yeah.
and I can give the solution before
Yeah.
people are like, "Hey, you didn't solve the problem."
Oh,
so
yeah.
in that
Let's
use
solve
case,
it.
yeah, not always, but
Yeah.
to solve that problem, what I did, man, was to think of a variable or a metric that the sales team can understand, so I can convert also all of the priorities I have and see with them eye to eye. And what actually helped us was to ask them to define the amount, or the dollar amount that can bring in by doing those features for the client. But that also meant that for all of the other features that I had prioritized, I had a dollar figure in mind on how much it can give back. Some of them might be tech debt, so it might be $0, in the perspective of customers, right? But some of them might also be valuable. So, example, I was building a product that will allow customers to, with my big bet of having more subscriptions, by building that feature. So it had a dollar amount. So when I compared all of these dollar amounts across all of the features that were requested, now I could see much better if I had to prioritize one over the other. And the sales team was perceptive to that because now they had to go back, compute the estimates were not always real. Sometimes they bloat it so much with their guesstimates, but most of the time it allowed us to communicate much better and really prioritize which one to do first. And in that use case, because it was all of the other factors pointed to us really getting a new round of funding, we had to prioritize the sales teams and the other businesses' features and build them. Sometimes there's no way to say no, especially if the CEO also, wanted to do it. So there, yeah.
So I think we talked about urgency. We talked about importance. We can translate it as a value it brings. But we have another parameter in prioritization, and that is effort. So you can have a feature that will get you like 10,000 ARR or 20,000 ARR for the second feature, but the second feature will be 10 times more expensive in terms of time and money. So I think this is very good, and the equation is simple. You just take the value and divide it by the effort, and you get the score. So this is also how you can incorporate the effort. What I'm wondering is, what is your best effective or top effective way to estimate work?
Well, number one, and engineers will massacre me for saying this, I swag it based on experience, right? So if a problem that I'm solving is similar to a problem that I've solved before, I already had a picture on how the level of effort that probably it will take. And usually I still rely a lot on the t-shirt sizing, and the t-shirt sizing is also equivalent to a certain number of days, and each company has a different way of measuring it or defining it. Allowed me also to make those swags early on without having a dependency. Because take note, and one of the principles of project management is to make sure that you're not always waiting for a dependency, because time is the most expensive, I think, out of all of the variables we're looking at. So I swag it out myself first, just so that I have a, figure that I can probably think of, when I look at everything and I don't get overwhelmed. And then I have to consult later on my tech anchors, or the lead engineers that I partner up with to get their level of estimates. So definitely you can have those swaggy swag, as I call them, guesstimates. But later on, you really need to get an engineer who's more senior, who can also swag it out with you, Obviously you have to give them the assurance that whatever you swag out or whatever, sorry, swag is another another jargon or
Yeah.
another term, but swag, do you know what swag means?
Yeah.
Swag means some wild ass guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's some wild ass
I didn't
guess.
knew the one.
Yeah, yeah. Swag can also mean like the jerseys,
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
your
I mean,
brand.
I know
But
this one.
but in general, swag also just means some wild ass guess.
Oh, okay.
So now you know. Now you know with a meme. Yeah, so in general, you also can get your engineer to have a swag date, but don't hold them accountable if it's not the right estimate, right?
Yeah.
Because as you go into the problem, there might be more use cases you haven't hashed out, and the work might be bigger than what you expect.
Yeah.
So for me, prioritization also includes swagging it with engineers, having first level, swag it as a product manager based on your experience and patterns. Secondly, bring the engineer, your lead engineer or tech anchor in so that you can work with them on having better estimates,
Yeah.
and then you can go and prioritize everything.
I think the first approach to do the work is to define what you want to be done, and then ask engineers how long will it take.
Yeah.
But there is also second approach, and that is tell engineers what they will do and how long will it take, and they just confirm if it's doable or not.
Oh.
Or you just do the
How did
specs,
that work for you?
or you just do the specs or requirements,
Yeah.
and you tell them, okay, you have 2 weeks or 1 month to do this feature. Now tell me what you can do in this 2 weeks or
I
1
actually
month.
love that. Yeah.
Because this is also a good thing, because you need to prioritize the time as a resource, and that way you can say, okay, this feature is importance number 1, so we give it just, I don't know, like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
This is importance 3, so we give it 3 months, for example. And you have a time frame beforehand.
Yeah.
So I think this works I think it's from a theory of shape up, if you know shape up. It works like that. It really just twists the dogma how it should work.
Yeah.
And in certain scenarios, I think it's better. Because when, for example, you are doing the strategy, I think the strategy is actually also telling the team how long will we spend on specific outcomes and activities. So that way you can tell them, okay, now we have, I think, like 20 man days per month to do growth activities, to do growth experiments.
Yeah.
Now fit as much as you can into those 20 man days. So that brings me to another topic, that maybe if you have problem with chaos and prioritization and stuff, because often like ad hoc initiatives show up.
Yeah.
Like today we have to have something done, and legal needs something because otherwise we will go to jail or whatever reason,
They always try to tell you they're going to go to jail if we don't do this legal
It's
thing.
always.
Yeah.
I think the good way is to work with the time of your team. So how much time do you have in your team? And really try to analyze how much time do we spend on meetings. So how much like just the really true development time our engineers have. And now what we will do with the development time. And I think you can use Pareto rule for the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, because every team is different, and somewhere you will need like 20% to tackle the technical depth of the whole time, somewhere 30, somewhere nothing, because you are very early stage and you don't deal with such a thing. But if
Can
you
you talk about sorry man for interrupting, but can you talk about the Pareto rule for those that don't know what the Pareto rule is?
Yeah, okay, so Pareto rule is that like 20% of what you do make the 80% of the results you can get. And then 80% of those details will just add up those 20% of the value.
Yeah, and I think some people also call it the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 80-20 rule. Yeah, So I use it also in life.
yeah, in life I use it a lot, man. Yeah.
It's a good proxy metric. Back to proxy metrics later.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the challenges, if I just switch the topic for a while, that we are talking about, okay, now do the dollar sizing of the opportunity, or now do the outcome-based value estimation for the opportunity. Okay, but how the hell can I know that if I do this feature, it will help me raise my sign-up rate by 20%.
Yeah.
How do I know this? Like, it is a great theory, but when I started doing these like outcome-based valuations, I was completely lost because I didn't know how to do it, right? So I think the good thing here is to do the proxy metrics.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can find in your product something very similar to what you have done before.
Yeah.
In terms of some experimentation, maybe you have similar hypotheses on how to make one step in your funnel more effective. And then you have very similar hypotheses for different funnel and different feature. So in the first experiment, it helped you get 5% more on these steps throughput. So you can have an assumption that if you do the similar stuff in the similar funnel, it will also raise the conversion by 5% for this step. So this is one way how you can get proxy metrics from your past experience to set this up. The other way is that you can look for benchmarks on the market. But it's
more difficult, especially if you have a product that's that nobody ever had, and most startups, especially early ones that are more innovative, they don't have any comparison.
But maybe the question, if you don't have the experience and you can't find a benchmark, how can you set this value-based estimate for a feature? Do you have any idea?
Not at all, man.
Yeah.
It's difficult to it's difficult to come up with those estimates if you don't have a basis. That's why I think at the end of the day, you have to just create your own, assumptions, right? And also it's different for each problem. But I feel if you don't have, you can't pull out your hair if you really can't find it anywhere. But I think you just have to trust that, this is the big bet. This is the big bet, right? And then from there, you just keep on iterating and changing those base metrics until, you have enough data to really tell you what your baseline is. Yeah. And I think with product, we do a lot of those estimations. That's why a lot of people are asking me, Dust, why do we have to do all of these like Google, the Google interviews or similar interviews because of Google have been all about, they have a concept of an estimation, like a random question, like, hey, how many people fly out from San Francisco every day? And they let you really come up with a precise number, because that's kind of what we do with product, is that if you don't have the number, if you don't have the metrics, you can make assumptions, but make sure that your assumptions are based on data that already exists. Yeah. And then from there, you can refine those the baseline as you collect more data.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I mean, in those interviews, it is about an approach. Because
it's also about the approach.
It's about approach.
Right?
They are basically trying to find out if you are like data aware. Yeah. So you can, if they ask you this question, you can ask them a question. Okay, so how many people do live in San Francisco? How many flights are there? Yeah. How big is the airport? Yep. How many airlines are there? So you can ask all those questions, and I think during the interview they will give you the answers. Yeah. They just want to see that you can work it out somehow. So. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
I have an unpopular opinion though about interviews for another episode, because sometimes they also don't even know what they're looking for, right? so yeah. Anyway.
I think also for market sizing, if we talk about market sizing for founders, there is a single way how to do it.
Yeah.
Like you need to do it from the data you can get about the market. And the data is always different. You can have some government data, you can have some Facebook Insights data, you can have some Google Trends data. But in the end of the day, you have the same data and you can make 50 different calculations and equations on those data to get your market sizing, for example. And I think the same goes for the product development. The product development is a bet every time. Yeah, you are never certain if it will work or not in the way you want. Yeah. But the more you can get the argumentation for it, the better.
Yeah,
the more confidence you can get.
Support it, the better. I have to switch us a little bit to the next topic, just because we can talk about estimation and numbers forever, I think. Yeah. We'll tackle, and we'll have our own metrics-driven conversation in another episode. But I think let's go back and talk about...
Maybe if I can add one last thing. And I think this is also very important, as a lot of other things I already said. But this one is that if you choose something to work on, there is the contrast that you are actively choosing to not work on something else.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah.
there is always opportunity cost. So it is not only about that you choose something, it didn't work out, so your metric on this outcome wouldn't change.
Yeah.
But the problem is that you could work on something else that could give you
Yeah.
the right.
So you just have to be aware then,
Yes.
that the others exist and what are the trade-offs
Exactly.
of not working on them.
So the best way to be aware in this is not to ask a question, should we work on this? But always ask a question, should we work on A or B?
Oh,
Like
I love that.
compare and contrast
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah, it's difficult to think about all of these at the same time, man. But being able to think about trade-offs and options, I think is one of the most important traits we should have. Is not only think linear or have that bias on like, okay, this is the only thing we work on or this is the only question to ask, but the question should always be two-pronged, right? Every time we make decisions. Okay, now we really have to shift. because
Let's
we
go.
don't have enough time. So let's talk about quality assurance.
Yeah.
Knowing that there are very tight deadlines for getting stuff out the door, and let's go back to that use case of delivering for the sales team. How do you make sure that there's quality of work with what we put out there? Because that can suffer, right? So let's say we tell the team, okay, team, now we've estimated that we can create a smaller version of the request within 2 weeks. How do we make sure that it's built well? Because the quality might suffer, right? Or even we might cut even quality assurance testers and do it ourselves to be able to deliver the product. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you can go with all those best practices, have a definition of done. So that means what needs to happen before we ship a feature, that there is manual testing on QA side, that you have regression testing, automated tests, and everything. I would say in some use cases, you have to do this from the beginning. If you are fintech or really dealing with very sensitive data, you have to do things like that. But in every other use case, I think this really slows you down. So there is an idea that if you want to test something and the early stage is the most uncertain stage, you can build it funky, skibbity,
God,
in
skibbity.
skibbity in today's jargon.
Yeah.
If
Cringy. Just kidding.
okay, so you build it funky, and then you ship it. If it does work, okay, it's okay. You can just throw it away and build it again because it does work. You get a funding. You see it works. But if it doesn't work, you're happy because you didn't spend twice or triple the time on the initiative and wasted the time and money on it. So I think this is a good idea. But there will be a day when the technical debt will get you if you are not prepared. So I think the best way is to really manage your technical debt in a way that you would manage your backlog of initiatives. So for every decision where you make a trade-off and generating some technical debt, that means you really write a shitty code, or the code is not optimized, or you choose like architecture that might not be scalable for the next phase. You just write it down in your backlog. You prioritize those things. You should be aware of some dependencies. For example, if a product manager wants some feature, maybe that means you need to tackle some of the technical debt before. And later, I would say it is also good to have like some time for a technical debt put aside. So, for example, 20% of development time is for technical debt, 30%, 5%. I don't want to say exact numbers. At some use case, we had 30%, but it was time when we were mature after 4 years of development, and we really need to tackle all those technical debt because it really slowed us down. So at this moment, when we needed to scale, we put 30% of development time into technical debt. But at an early stage, you probably wouldn't dealing with technical debt like this at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you should be aware and have a backlog. What's your advice?
Well, my hot take on it is that, number one, QA should be implanted with engineers. Like engineers should do unit testing before they put stuff out. They know well. I think at the beginning they also need to understand the use case. For us not to have a lot of problems with testing later on, because a lot of, in my experience, a lot of problems happen when the engineer at the beginning or the engineers at the beginning don't understand what they're building, or they build something because it's a feature factory, and it's not because they're invested in the user or they understand the user. Right? So number one, you fix the problem at the beginning of the funnel, so that there's not that much technical debt and QA issues at the end of their development cycle. The second one is if you can afford it, and a lot of startups actually can't, is that um, have QA write down, or the product manager work with QA. If you have one, write down the specific success metrics, for that feature to be done, or they sometimes call it jargon again, definition of done, proper, very crisp definition of done. And then, QA can also have their own part of the development funnel on Jira, so that they can test, and then you can do your own user acceptance testing. But if you don't have the luxury of having QA, then before you even deploy, product should be there to do that work for QA. So testing can happen. So at least you have testing from the engineering side to prove that everything that they were supposed to deliver was delivered, and there is also a check at our end before something gets deployed, so product can actually test it. But going back to your point on technical debt, you can never really avoid technical debt. I have an unpopular, I have an opinion that technical debt will always be there no matter what size of your company, because as you scale, you might not have thought about, the feature, the feature fully when you're developing it, because you're moving at such a high pace. So you just have to expect that there will be technical debt, and then your Pareto principle will come in, right? Like, which among the technical debt do you chip on, and add to your backlog, so that slowly you don't have a backlog of technical debt, but you are able to tackle these problems slowly. Yeah. So there.
Yeah, that's a nice one. I'm having in mind one very useful tool for managing bug reports. For example,
What do you have?
it's a Jam. It's called Jam. So you have in your browser an extension that is always recording. So if there is a bug that appears, you can also run it manually. But if there is a bug that appears, you can just click on the extension and it will show you last minute of what you have been doing on the website.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
But the best part about it is that you have the recording.
Yeah.
You can put some arrows and screenshots inside of it, but it also captures the console log of the browser.
Oh, I was supposed to ask about that.
All the
because you're always
all the information about the device, the browser, and everything. All those information that developers need to tackle the problem.
Yeah, you have to have a link on that with this video just for people to know, because I didn't even know that existed.
It's amazing, and the amazing part also is for the engineers that they can chat with an AI bot about the problem, and the AI chat will give them the errors from the console and will help them debug the problem. So it is a good tool.
That's great.
And one more thing to speaking about the quality of the product, how you ensure the quality. I think it starts at the design stage. That if you can afford QA, you as a product manager or as a founder should be doing the testing before you ship. You should have at least 2 engineers, if possible, so they can do code review.
Okay.
I think this is where the most of the problems you will tackle during the code review, but you need 2 engineers for this. Then you will test it as a product manager. And how would you test it? And I think this is when it comes to the design stage, that in design stage, you shouldn't just have screens of your app, but you should have the flows. So you should see what is the input, what is the output, and what are the steps, the flow of the screens. So I think this is very important, because then during the testing, you go by the flows and try all the use cases, or not the use cases, but the combinations of inputs and everything in the app, and see if it works or not.
Yeah.
And then you should run some user testing.
Yeah.
So
I think it also comes from the engineers, man.
Yeah.
That when you go through, when you go through a design review, in that design review, the engineer should be asking questions about different states of different assets you might have. Right. And then how does this work? Does this flow work? But also, and again, this is a different episode perhaps on UX and engineering.
Yeah, definitely.
That, they have to have frequent design sessions so that UX doesn't just make an assumption on how things should function, but they should work closely with engineers, because you might be working off on a limited front-end framework, right? That might not have all of the atoms and molecules that you need, and that's another conversation on design systems. Cool.
I think one more thing from my experience is that the engineers are the worst QA ever.
Hey.
because
Yeah,
because
well,
they are working on the thing like hours and hours and hours and hours, and they are completely blind.
yeah, yeah.
And so
It's an analogy though in cooking,
yeah,
like when you cook or when you bake and then you keep on tasting your food,
yeah,
you know, you might not have any more appetite later on when it gets delivered or finished because you're like, man, I've been tasting this, it tastes the same already
yeah.
after some time. So not saying that all engineers are bad at testing. It's just that when you do the thing, you know, for the entire time and then you have the end result,
Yes,
it
yes.
feels like it's the same thing as when you've tested it. But actually, you need another perspective or somebody else who hasn't worked
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
So you have a fresh perspective on what works or
You
what
need to get
doesn't.
someone that will try to break the thing.
Yeah,
Basically. So,
totally.
and that is also because the engineer is working on the thing, right? He wouldn't like to break it.
Yeah, no,
So-
definitely. Or he just assumes that everything
So,
will stand
yeah.
and do a Hail Mary that, when it gets shipped, it's the same
Yeah.
same as when they've tested it.
So it is always
Yeah.
a good thing not to leave your engineers alone before you ship the product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to shift a little bit, in the interest of time.
Okay, so we talked about quality and prioritization, but also the part of the chaos is managing the stakeholders, and especially in a situation in a crisis. So, Dustin, what is your advice to manage stakeholders right in a crisis situation?
So when it comes to chaotic situations, which is like every time as a product manager, I think the best advice is really communicate, communicate, communicate. And I think we always have to remind ourselves that people don't know what people don't know. So when they get surprised, that's when they get frazzled that, oh God, what is happening. So being able to communicate at the beginning with your sales stakeholders, your CEO, your business stakeholders, your customers, everybody, when it comes to crises, allows you also to give some time for yourself to solve the problem, without everybody panicking as if something's on fire. There are different ways of communicating properly, but just being aware, that you have to tell everybody what's going on is already the best, first step to handling stakeholders. And then later on, things will follow, right? Having these tools, having a one pager. To be frank, though, Frank, like we need to have that trauma as part of. We don't have sound effects now, but post production. But in general, man, like I think if you're able to have if you have a one pager, nobody reads it, man. But if you're able to tell them and they understand and acknowledge that, okay, I agree, well, we're going to be patient, and you communicate to them and communicate also to them each step of the process if something happens, actually helps everybody, keep calm.
Yeah, yeah.
How
I
about you?
completely agree. I mean, my answer is completely the same. Over communication doesn't exist, especially in those situations. So yes, I completely agree. So I think the worst thing you can do is to keep it for yourself.
Yeah.
Try to work on it and hope everything will be fine. I think the good thing to remember is that especially in product development, there will be always some shit. Always. All the time, you will do the mistakes.
What? Just kidding. Yes, yeah. That's my favorite. My
I
favorite
mean, is
line
it only me? Oh,
no,
yeah.
no. My
Okay,
favorite.
maybe
my
I'm
favorite
a
line is
bad
shit
product
happens.
manager.
Yeah. Shit happens, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like that. And I mean, what is most valued, I think, by everyone is transparency
Yeah.
and communication.
Yeah.
If you can come, say, I did a mistake, because most of the times it might not be because you did something wrong,
Yeah.
but because the product development is risky and it's just about betting on things,
Yeah.
right? So the best thing is to come, say, I did a mistake. And if you need, ask the others for help.
Yeah. And just to tie it back, man, to the use case that we had earlier today on B2B and sales and being able to prioritize, I think that, being able to communicate also to them that, number one, you have so much on your backlog. Number two, we need to find a way to really, prioritize by looking at cost. Can you give us the dollar amount? This is how we prioritize. And sharing that roadmap will also make, your business partners or your internal partners appreciate that you're thinking through their problem and you're acknowledging it. Because if you don't communicate to them that this is how your process works, this is how what you're dealing with, it always feels that you're sneaky,
Yeah.
and like you're doing something because you just don't want to prioritize them or you don't like them. So I think it always ties back to just communicating to them what's on your mind and how you're dealing with the problem. Yeah. Okay. Our last question for the day. I hope I can say that there's a caller, but we don't have any of those. Is all about what are the tips for keeping calm and moving on as a product manager in times of chaos? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with all of these stresses?
Good question. I had to think about it.
Yeah. And then for me, it's always about, that's why you have all of these strategy documents. Every time you put all of these documents down, it's not because you just write things and then leave it behind, but it's also because if you get overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, it's always it always brings you to the center by reading your strategy. So what I do with a lot of partners, startups that I work with is that we come up with really a one pager on who they are, what we're here for, what we're planning to do, the vision, mission, objectives of the project that we have. And every time I get lost, I feel like, fudge, where am I now? What am I supposed to do? I read that strategic document and it tells me that, okay, Dust, I think this is the next step, or this is where you're at, this is where you need to go to. And then revise the document as you go. That's why it's a living and breathing document. It's also good, and I'll keep on, giving my advice, but it's also good not to panic and show the team that you're losing your shit. Because at the end of the day, the team will also look up to you, so it might be good also to just keep calm, and I think the theme for the past few episodes has been take a pause, take a breather, and be able to, and that pause or breather will enable you to make better decisions by clearing up your mind and having a clear plan of attack ahead. So yeah, I mean, product management is never easy. That's never the theme of any of our conversations privately or with this podcast. But being able to really find ways to be zen when you make decisions will make it easier for you. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
that's great advice. Okay, I was thinking through what would my advice be, and I think good thing that you can do to manage the chaos is to structure it and bring some habits maybe. So for me, it really works to bring some habits, maybe to have some time frames in my calendar when I do certain work. So now I'm doing the research, now I'm doing the requirements, now I'm doing the testing. So this way you can keep your focus maybe a little bit more. But the problem is that when you are in a chaos, you can try to structure it, but sometimes the chaos will win.
Yeah,
And then you can have a little bit of depression because you have your structured calendar for the whole week, every minute. And I think some of us work like that.
yeah. I think some people like the pressure. Some people
Yeah.
are kind of like, when something goes wrong, they just panic. That's why I feel like going back to, just taking a pause and going back to the
Yeah.
center is really, really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think the routine can help you really, but
Yeah.
sometimes the chaos will be bigger, and now you will be like,
Overwhelmed.
overwhelmed, and you can't even do your routine,
Yeah.
and that can be very depressing.
Yeah.
But the thing to remember is that it will happen all the time.
Yeah.
That there is no such perfect routine, no such
Yeah.
perfect calendar layout or
Yeah.
anything else, no such perfect, time management
Yeah.
or anything else. I think the time management to make it perfect is to work on something valuable. But it doesn't mean that you will be on deadlines,
Yeah.
that you will not end at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
in the night. It happens all the time. And to the habits, I think one of the top habits that have the best impact lately for me is to have a time for deep work, for really deep focus. So from the morning, just sit down for a half an hour
Yeah.
and write down for yourself what is the biggest problem
Yeah.
I can tackle. Or just let your mind soar a little bit and try to find a topic, or not try to find, just wait for the thought to appear.
Yeah.
And this is really good. The best way is to have just a paper and pen. If you can do it without
Yeah.
distractions, take your ChatGPT to
Yeah.
help you brainstorm more. But take this time to be working really focused and deep on the biggest problem you have.
Yeah.
It might be a feature, it might be a process in your team. Half an hour a day really makes a big difference. And and it connects with having no disturb mode.
Yeah. Well, I also have on my calendar, similar to yours, man, what I call a GSD. So I block out parts of my calendar and I have GSD or get shit done time. Yeah, so that I'm able to focus on what I need, whether that's personal time or I need work time, and there are no meetings that are scheduled on those blocks. But yeah, all of us, have different strategies in order to
Yeah.
get by. I think the most important thing that we have to remember is just to be aware, and then find time for ourselves. Whether it's to keep quiet and just like focus, or if we just need to work on something specific.
Yeah.
Cool.
Amazing episode.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
thought it will be a short one because the preparation was not so long,
I know,
right?
me too. But
But it
usually when
seems
you
that
have when you
we-
have something to talk about, I think like it always brings you back to your
Yeah.
old stories on what you've experienced. So I think
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it's
it's
good.
the morning, we gotta catch a train, but if it's evening,
Yeah.
I would definitely get myself a beer and continue for
Oh,
a few hours
totally.
about it.
I was
Yeah.
thinking, I told you, Frank, we should have a beer session where we just have
Yeah.
beer and
Yeah.
beer and product, But that will be more of what we call an F up night,
Yeah.
I don't know if we can say bad words, but F up nights. Cool. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you liked, I think what we have, definitely give us some feedback, comments, suggestions on topics that we can tackle. We're also planning to add in more guests, right, later on. We'd love to see how Europe, the US, and also like other tech companies or founders or product people in Asia can be part of the conversation. We want this to be more than just two cities. I live in Seattle. He lives in Brno. So hope you'll be able to see more content in the next few weeks and months. Awesome. Thank you, Frank, and thank you for hosting me here in Brno. We'll see each other in Prague.
It was a
and
pleasure.
Yeah, probably we can head over to California.
Yeah, maybe next time from US.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay,
All right.
thanks for everyone and bye-bye.
Ciao.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, now we have to run.